The secrets of the small shafts of the Great Pyramid. 6 underbar more items in the shafts. Part 6. In continuation of the previous video. After this ventilation situation in the Pyramid of Cheops, M. Edgar Einan Goten gives insight, which results from his own experience after the cleaning work on the air shafts. Thus the breeze that blows through the north air channel, now that I have had it cleared of hardened debris, does not reach into the king's chamber directly, for the opening into the chamber is very small in comparison to the excavation. When the wind blows in from the north, it naturally takes the easiest path, and that is through into the west side of the antechamber, and it finds its way into the king's chamber through the second low passage. Of course, a little of the wind will find its way in through the small opening in the chamber's north wall. A great deal depends on the direction of the wind outside of the pyramid. If the wind blows from the south, as it sometimes does very strongly, it blows directly down the south channel into the king's chamber, and right out again through the north channel. If from the north, all this is reversed. But sometimes the breeze comes from the interior of the pyramid, blowing outward through both channels. In this case the wind comes in by the entrance passage, or through Ahriman's forced passage. And the air current moves up or down the well shaft according to the direction of the outside wind. And so on, the current of air going in varying direction throughout the inside of the pyramid, and changing between morning and night, when it is hot or cool outside. In a 2015 article about the small shafts of the Pyramid of Cheops, Haas writes that he is convinced that all 4 small shafts were designed by the builders as ventilation shafts. Based on calculation results from Gunter Mugg, air transport between 75 and 118 cubic meter per hour takes place through the channels in the king's chamber, and the thermal buoyancy is between 324 and 380 cubic meter per hour. The following are given as prerequisites: average values, wind speed, 3 meters/sec. Air density, 1.2 kilograms/m³, temperature difference, 5 degrees Celsius. Roughness of the shaft walls, 0.5 centimeter. As the reason why the shafts of the Queen's chamber, which were closed on both sides, were originally designed as air ducts, Haas states that the sloping gable ceiling of the chamber was difficult to construct in contrast to the flat ceiling of the king's chamber, and therefore the entire chamber was filled with sand. To bring the sloping gable roof into position. To ensure that the openings intended as air shafts were not blocked by this sand, they were not extended to the chamber itself. However, it would have been easy to open it later. But that didn't happen again. From the height of the intersection of the ascending corridor and the descending corridor, the interior of the pyramid was always ventilated via 2 openings, the descending corridor and the ascending corridor, or its continuation, the Great Gallery. There could always be air circulation inside until the Great Gallery was completed. Air circulation then took place via the 2 upper air ducts of the king's chamber and the entrance, so that the shafts in the Queen's chamber that were intended as potential air ducts were no longer needed and were closed at the level of the 4th relief chamber of the king's chamber. Since the construction of the gable of the king's chamber was now pending, construction on the rest of the pyramid may have been stopped until the gable was finished. In Haas's opinion, this construction stop could have been the reason for the temporary closure with a blocking stone. When the gable was completed and the king's chamber was also closed, it was decided not to continue the 2 shafts of the Queen's chamber, and they were permanently closed. According to Haas, the roughly hewn stone after the blocking stone is an indication that it is a stone from the core masonry of the pyramid. The question that arises, why is there a cavity of approx. 19 centimeters after the blocking stone if you wanted to completely close the shaft forever? The following short list from various publications shows how different the lengths of the shafts are. William Kingsland, who had met Morton Edgar in 1931, gave Edgar's values as the length for the north and south shafts of the Queen's chamber, that is 209 feet 63.70 meters, for the south shaft, and 175 feet 53.34 meters, for the north shaft. Noteworthy in this context is the statement in Leppe 1990, 111 that the northern shaft is 240 feet 73.15 meters long and the southern shaft is 250 feet 76.20 meters long. The information comes from before the first shaft exploration by Gantenbrink's robot Uppyaut. Unfortunately, Lepper does not write in his book where this information comes from. In a newspaper article from 1,993,108, 65 meters is given as the length of the south shaft. The north shaft had not yet been explored up to the blocking stone at that time. Hancock describes the discovery of the closure stone in the south shaft by Uppyaut and gives the distance of 200 feet approx. 61 meters, to reach the zone in which the stones of the shaft are polished. 109 Haas gives the length of the south shaft as approximately 60 meters on. He follows the information from Gantenbrink, who determined the south shaft to be 59.45 meters and almost 64 meters for the north shaft. 110 In a later publication 111, Haas agreed with the 208/9 foot 63.40-63.70 meters fraction regarding the south shaft and describes Gantenbrink's measurement from 1993 as incorrect. Haas gives a value of approximately 65 meters 213 feet for the south shaft 112, but refers to Uppyaut too. Richardson and Whitehead give the value determined by Jeddy for the south shaft as 63.60 plus/minus 0.4 meters. 113 Petrie wrote in 1883 in the Pyramids and Temples of Giza. The N channel is 8.6 high and about 8 wide in the chamber wall, running horizontally for 76 inches and then turning upwards. The S channel is 8.8 high and runs 80.0 to its turn upwards. If the length of the ascending shafts had already been determined by Dixon or Petrie, Petrie would certainly have noted this in his book, as he was extremely conscientious about his work. The